Mm.
Whereas, I mean, if it was a crocodile or something like that, it's going to be intimidating to children and the girl at the beach. I don't think anybody wants to see a crocodile at the beach. So I thought that it would be a creature that kids would enjoy reading about and pretending that they saw at the beach because it's funny. You don't really see an elephant when you go to the beach. So I just thought that it would bring joy because it's not something you're expecting. And like I said, there's a lot of funny things you can do with an elephant since they are so big.
Ho, 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 ho. Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 479. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and award-winning New England children's book author, Christine Devane. Christine.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show today.
Yeah. Before we started, we just noticed that, you're a fellow New Englander. You're just about south of here. So are you guys, as of this recording, do you still have leaves on your trees, or are you full blown stick season right now?
There's some leaves, they're blowing everywhere because it's been really windy. So there's piles outside. My kids are jumping in and stuff like that. But there's a little left on the trees.
There's a little bit. Yeah. See, north of us here, we are, growing up, we had the fall foliage, and we had Halloween, then you go into Thanksgiving. And so there's a local singer came a couple years ago that had the term stick season, which I've never heard of before, but now people are using it all the time for that time between, like fall foliage, and you get the Halloween, pre November time where there's just nothing on the trees whatsoever. But I never heard that term stick season until basically till a couple years ago. Um, but anyway, here's the thing, Christine. We want to talk about Elephant Beach because that has nothing to do with the fall. That has everything to do with fun summer times. um, so, uh, so what is the story of Elephant Beach?
Sure. So, Elephant Beach is a book about a little girl that goes to the beach. She's very shy. So, she goes to the beach. She wants to read her book by herself. I grew up very shy. And as she's at the beach, there's a group of elephants that are just playing, but she almost thinks they're annoying because their shadows cover her. And then because they're so big, they get sand on her towel when they move, and they invite her to play. And at first she says no. And then a little while later, she's intrigued and she joins the group and she has fun. So it shows shy kids that sometimes it's okay to try something new and join a group, and that you can have fun doing something different. And it also shows people that sometimes it's hard for kids to just jump in and join a group. And for the little girl, it took a while and then she ended up having fun. And it also shows the extroverts that sometimes it's nice to reach out and invite somebody that's by themselves to play with us.
So was the story always meant to be about elephants, or did that just kind of come later?
No, so growing up, I loved elephants. I have a collection of elephants. My grandparents and my parents always brought me elephants, and I just always thought they were funny and they're very social, kind creatures. So when I was thinking of an animal for the book, an elephant came to my head right away because they are so social and, like I said, kind. They travel in packs. So I thought it would be a good creature to be kind to the little girl.
Right. And so, but you're also a teacher, correct?
Not anymore. I was a teacher before I had children, and now I'm
Okay.
home because my children are small.
And so how did your experience as a teacher kind of influence the story?
So when I was teaching, I always had all different personalities in my classroom, and I always identified with the shy kids because it's tough being in school when you're shy. And I feel like sometimes they're overshadowed by the extroverts that can be louder. And I just wanted to write a book for them to show them that it's okay to be shy and hopefully help parents out there understand that it's not usually the child's choice to be shy, it's just their personality.
Mm. And so as a teacher, you read a lot of children's books, I'm guessing, growing up, and also as a mother now too, you probably read a lot of children's books. And one writing a children's book is extremely complicated. Uh, what was some of the things that you learned about the process that you were surprised about?
So I started to write the book when I was still teaching. And the first thing I did, which I tell everybody that wants to write a book, is to go find groups and resources. I joined a group called the SCBWI. I went to a few conferences, and then I joined a local critique group. And we used to meet in the library, and you would bring your story. And when it was your turn, everybody would read it and give you feedback. And I think that that's really helpful for people writing a book because if I wrote a story and gave it to my husband, my mom, my friends, they're all going to read it and say, Christine, this is wonderful. We love the story. They're not going to give you actual feedback. So it's nice to have people reading it that are also working on children's book and they're going to give you actual feedback. So I tell people that that's the first thing to do. And also, because children's books don't have a lot of words, the words have to really be meaningful and you have to do a lot of editing with the words, make sure it's words that kids can read. So that whole process took a while and that was surprising. But the after part, once the book is published and the marketing of it is also where it comes to be a challenge. And I've learned new things like doing these podcasts.
Did you imagine like this as a read aloud book or more of like a one-on-one reading?
I pictured it as both just because
Okay.
I loved doing read alouds when I was a teacher. And I feel like a lot of books have social skills in it, and we would have a lot of good discussions after we read the book. So I wanted a book where kids could read it with their teacher and talk about being shy and how we can help kids that are shy and understanding that not everyone has an easy time making new friends.
Hmm. You basically have like three characters here. You got the elephants, you got the girl, and then you also have the setting, which is a beach. Was this setting based on a real beach? You know?
So growing up, I always went to Revere Beach with my grandparents, and
Okay.
I always enjoyed going to the beach. It was fun. And I felt like the beach was a perfect setting for kids because most of them have been to the beach. And when I do read alouds, the kids are excited because they can share what they do at the beach, what they wear at the beach, things that they like to see at the beach. So it brings out a lot of conversation based on just the fact that it's at a beach.
How did you come up? You mentioned that you mentioned earlier about your connection to elephants, but how did you come up with the idea to use elephants to symbolize like joy and surprise?
I just have always enjoyed them, and I thought that they were great creatures. They're funny, and I thought that they would bring joy also because kids like their size. They think they're funny because they're so big.
Mm.
Whereas, I mean, if it was a crocodile or something like that, it's going to be intimidating to children and the girl at the beach. I don't think anybody wants to see a crocodile at the beach. So I thought that it would be a creature that kids would enjoy reading about and pretending that they saw at the beach because it's funny. You don't really see an elephant when you go to the beach. So I just thought that it would bring joy because it's not something you're expecting. And like I said, there's a lot of funny things you could do with an elephant since they are so big.
Were there any scenes or pages that were especially fun to write then?
I really like the page where the elephant is afraid of the crab. So there's an elephant and it's yelling because it's afraid of the crab. And you wouldn't picture an elephant to be afraid of a crab because it's so much bigger than a crab. And then the little girl is showing that she's brave because she's not afraid of the crab. So I like that page.
Was there any part of the book then that was particularly difficult to get just right?
Just the pictures back and forth, trying to figure out what I wanted everything to look like and how I imagined them in my head. So that took a little while going back and forth.
And what was it like to see your story come to life when you had an illustrator connected to it?
So the illustrator worked with the publishing company and I wrote
Okay.
very specific notes, but it's funny because everybody can interpret notes differently. So when you see the pictures, you're like, oh, they pictured it like this. And then there was a lot of back and forth. And then as much as you imagine it in your head, it looks different when they draw it. So, for example, the beach scene at the beginning, it looked perfect, but it was missing something. So I had them add the sign that says Elephant Beach. So you don't really know until you see the pictures, and then you can figure out kind of what needs to be changed or what looks good as it is. But you just picture it in your head and writing it down. It's a few steps to get to where you want to be.
Were there any like surprises on how the illustrator kind of interpreted the story that you're like, hey, I like that. That's pretty cool.
Oh, it's funny, some of the elephants' outfits at first, I was like, "Okay, I don't know if I like this one. Oh, I like this one." And the beach hat they drew, I thought was really funny. So there was a couple of those things that I thought was funny the way that they did it.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. Let's talk a little bit about kind of like some of the behind the scenes pieces to the book. Uh, what's one thing readers might not notice on their first read of Elephant Beach?
Um, I don't know if readers will pick up on all of the social cues because there's things about introverts, extroverts, and then there's also a thing about giving people a chance and not judging people before you get to know them because the little girl judges the elephants and thinks they're annoying. And then when she gets to know them, she could see that they were just having fun. They didn't mean to do all of those things.
Mm. Did you include any like little Easter eggs or nods to your own life in the story?
Yeah, there's a lot in about my own life. So the elephants, I always enjoyed. The beach, I went with my grandparents. I made sure the main character had red hair because I have red hair and I didn't see a lot of characters besides Ariel with red hair. And it's funny, I wrote the book before I had children and I always pictured the little girl having red hair. And my daughter, ironically, has very bright red hair. So now everybody reading the book says, "Oh, is that Adeline in the book?" And we say, "Yeah, that's Adeline," but it's funny because I pictured it before she was born. So I made sure to tie those things into the book, and then I also happen to love the color purple, so I made sure that that was included in there.
How was it? Would you test the book out with kids before you had it published?
So I didn't really test it out with kids before I had it published. I tested out more with adults at those
Mm,
groups. And I went to a few different groups and I've said on different podcasts, you can go to groups, but now there's a lot of resources online where if you're not comfortable going to the group, you could do it online. So I tested the book out a lot that way before.
okay. Um, and uh, and what's been your favorite reaction from a child reader so far?
So my favorite was when I was doing classroom visits before school got out. A little girl knew I was coming and she wore her elephant shirt because she was so excited that I was reading an elephant book and she loved elephants. So I thought that was cool.
Okay. Huh. And so what advice would you give other first-time children's book authors?
So the advice I would give would just be to keep trying and keep reaching out to different resources. A lot of those groups, too, if you attend the conferences, they give you different email addresses so you can submit your work. And I just think it's really helpful to be around people that are doing the same thing. Find a community that will help you. There's tons of Facebook groups, Instagram groups. So I think that that's the most helpful thing to do as a first time author. Just join groups, get a lot of resources and you can read about what kind of publishing you want to do. And there's a lot of different things out there.
Okay. Do you see Elephant Beach as kind of like a standalone, or could there be more stories with the characters?
There could be more stories. I actually have two other books coming out on very different topics, but I could do more Elephant Beach books.
What would you tell your younger self who maybe, as you mentioned, maybe once felt like the girl in the book?
I would tell her that she is perfect the way she is, even if she is shy, and that when she gets older, she will eventually grow out of being shy. Although I am still shy when it comes to big groups, I'm not
Mm.
like I was when I was smaller. I didn't really want to talk to anyone. So I would just tell her that just the way she is perfect. And I have one of my children now who's very shy, and it's just something that kids have different personalities, and you just have to be understanding to that.
What books kind of inspired you growing up?
There were lots of different books. I not a book, but a movie. I love Dumbo, but Dumbo is also a book. So that was one of my favorite stories when I was growing up because obviously about the elephant and stuff like that. And then
Right.
I love the Velveteen Rabbit. That was one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite books. That was a good one. And now my kids love trucks. So they love Little Blue Truck. That's one of their favorite books. We have a lot of Little Blue Truck books. And then they like the Grumpy Monkey books. We've read a lot of those books.
What's next for you, Christine, as a writer? Are there more stories in the works then?
Yeah, so I have 2 more books coming out. So my it was supposed to be my 3rd book, but actually they're working on it pretty fast. So it's gonna be out hopefully by Christmas, and it's an alphabet book. It's called Letters and Sounds with Lola and Sophie, and it's about my dog Sophie. She's a rescue dog. She can get into some trouble, but we love her. And Lola was a Chihuahua that I used to have. She was very dainty. She only weighed 4 pounds. So the dogs actually never met in real life, but they're characters I thought would be funny to put in an alphabet book and goes through the alphabet book. Some of the letters are doing the same thing, like taking a tub or brushing their teeth. And
Oh,
then some of the letters are very different, like digging in the dirt and dainty. And I got the inspiration from that from my kids because they love alphabet books. So I
mm,
was just trying to think of how I could do my own alphabet book. So that one should be out before Christmas. And then I also have a book about grief coming out probably at the beginning of next year.
okay.
And I was inspired to write that when I was teaching because we would just get an email and say so and so had a death in the family, and there wasn't really any discussion. There wasn't really anything done in the classroom, and I always felt kind of bad. So I wrote a book about a little girl whose grandfather passes away. It's loosely based around my own grandfather. He did pass away when I was small, but we were very close. And it shows a little girl grieving after, but then she learns to remember him and do things to bring out his memory. Like they used to go garden together, and then she does it but with a twist, and she adds flowers to the garden. So it just shows children that we can be sad, we can grieve, and then we can also do things to remember that person.
Okay. Now, Christine, if people want to learn more about you and your book, where is the best place they could go to?
So you can go to my website. It's Christine-Devane, and there's all sorts of information on there. The book is on there. There's coloring pages on there, and then there's a contact form. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, they can fill that out.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. And listen, you'll have to come back on once you have your more books coming out.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'd love to come back.
All right. Thank you so much.